This is Shelley Craft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're at the 7th Annual Precious Metal Summit in Beaver Creek, Colorado, 2017. I'm with Clynton Nauman on today's show from Alexco Resource Corp. It's a publicly traded company, and the symbol is AXU on the NYSE and AXR on the TSX. I want to welcome you to SNNLive.
Thank you for having me here, Shelley.
It's good to have you. Let's start with a brief overview of the company, and we'll go from there.
Yes, well, Alexco owns the Keno Hill Silver District in the Yukon Territory in Canada. And we acquired that district in 2006. We put our first silver operation into production there in 2010. We suspended operations in 2013. We found a couple of new ore bodies in the subsequent period, and we're now transitioning from explorer developer to developer producer with the objective of going back into production, producing 3 to 4 million ounces of silver per year over the next 8 years. There's not a lot of companies that make the transition from explorer to operator, but we have very experienced people. We've done it before. This particular project is almost completely capitalized, so these are underground operations, and we're well down the path of redeveloping and recommissioning all of the infrastructure and processing facilities in the district.
And when do you think you'll be producing?
We're being pretty disciplined about how we're going about this. We've got about 1,500 meters of decline to drive, and that's in 2 separate declines. The first one's being driven as we speak. It's about 600 meters. It'll be complete by the end of the year or early 2018. And once that's completed, we'll move on and drive the second decline. It should be completed in the third quarter of 2018, and that's when we'll make a decision to commission it and put it in production. But along the way, there's going to be various critical path decision points, and so we're going to be pretty disciplined about what we're doing here.
So, Clynton, let me ask you, what brought you to this project, and what brought you to the Yukon?
You know, I've been working in the north since the early 1970s and spent a lot of time in Alaska doing grassroots exploration work across the state. And it was during my period in Alaska that I became aware and familiar with a lot of what was going on in the Yukon at the time. And this particular district, the Keno Hill Silver District, was in production. When production ceased there in the 1980s, I always had in the back of my mind that I would keep my eye on this district as to what happened. And as it turned out, there were a number of problems there. The district sort of fell into bankruptcy. The federal government of Canada ended up essentially owning the district, and it was from there that we acquired it and are now moving it back to production.
Why did you, as a corporation, make the decision to go and transfer from development into production?
I guess the easy answer to that is that that's our DNA. I mean, we are explorers, developers, and producers. You know, we love the silver space. Once back in production, we'll be Canada's only primary silver producer, and quite frankly, there's very few primary silver producers left in the world. So, and it's an opportunity to extract that resource, you know, for the benefit of the of the jurisdiction and also for Alexco, and to generate the cash that's required to sustain the corporation and do additional exploration. You should not get me wrong that we're 100% production focused. We do carry on a very aggressive and a consistent and systematic exploration program, which has been very successful in the last 2 or 3 years.
So how do you protect yourselves and make sure you have a low-cost production with the silver prices still lagging behind gold?
Yeah, so the key issue or the attribute that you have at Keno Hill is grade. So the average production grade at Keno Hill is going to be 800 grams per ton silver. There is no other project, I don't think, in the world that can match that. And better than that, in the first 2 or 3 years, production grades will be 900 grams per ton silver, or in excess of 1 kilogram per ton silver, producing about 4 million ounces of silver. So it's that quantum that becomes the denominator of the calculation on the pricing side, and that's what allows us to absorb the cycles or the fluctuations in the pricing market. That's a very important aspect of what we're doing here.
What's your background?
I'm a geologist. So Yeah, just a rinky-dink geologist.
Yeah, you've just been, walking boots on the ground for how many years now?
I don't even want to tell you.
Well,
I grew up in New Zealand and did a fair amount of work in Australia before coming to Canada back in 1973, I think so.
Now, tell me about the rest of the team.
Well, we've got a very talented team, operating team. I have a president, Brad Thrall, who is a process engineer and metallurgist that is leading the charge up at Keno Hill, and then beyond that, we'd have the normal array of operating and technical folks to support that entire business. So, and in addition to that, we also are charged with the responsibility. Keno Hill is a historic silver mining area, and it has a fairly large legacy liability. We are indemnified from that liability, but we're charged with the responsibility from the Canadian government to clean up that district. So we run, a small environmental business on top of the mining business.
So logistics, infrastructure, that's all being taken care of at this time, right?
Yeah, this is a district that was in production back in the early 1900s. At the end of the day, it produced a couple 100 million ounces of silver at an average grade of 40 ounces a ton. And because it was such a center of production, all of the roads, there's power, we're on the grid, we have year-round access, and all of the facilities that are required to produce silver on that property are already in place. So we certainly are, it's a short runway to production, and the capital costs are very modest, actually.
Let's get your website out there for more information, if you would.
Okay, so you can look at us online at www.alexcoresource.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Clynton Nauman, Alexco Resource Corporation. I'm going to give you two symbols, AXU on the NYSE, AXR on the TSX. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNNLive, and we're coming to you live from the 7th Annual Precious Metals Summit in Beaver Creek, Colorado, 2017. Clint, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.